there was an opportunity to reveal the person who was after her, kind of literally, because the person had a mask on, and they just didn't pull the mask off. They just walked away. So who does that? Sorry guys, I'm repeating myself, but it's what life happens. Sorry. I'm like, wow, I'm making it sound like I didn't like it more than I claimed to do, but I'm starting to think of other things. The next book I read, that's a lie. I also, Hi everybody, it's Audrey and welcome back to Chapter and Converse. Today's video is going to be part one of my May reading rewind wrap up, talking about all the books. It is still the month of May. I still have like a week to go, so I'm planning to finish some more books up, but I figured I would hop on and talk about a few of the books that I have read already, since I tend to go on a whole lot when I talk, and why not? So anyway, I have read, no surprise, some thrillers and mysteries. I have dipped into some darkness. It has been a good month so far, and I am excited to talk about all of these books. The first book I want to talk about is A Good Girl's Guide to Murder by Holly Jackson. And I mentioned this in the video I did about my haul, so you might have already heard me talk about this. So I didn't totally review it then, but I'm pretty sure I told you guys that I loved it, and I loved it. This actually came out in the UK last year and just came out here, and it is Americanized to take place in Connecticut in the US version. And this is about a high school senior named Pip, and she is working on her senior thesis capstone project. And she has decided that she is going to look into a murder that took place 5 years earlier in their town. And long story short, a high school senior at the time, a girl named Andy, went missing and is presumed dead, and her boyfriend, Salil, was basically the top suspect. And a couple days after Andy went missing, he was found in the woods having committed suicide and left what appeared to be a confession. And the police and the town and Andy's family were totally fine with this, done and dusted, case closed, even though Andy's body was never found. And Salil's family obviously doesn't think it. His friends seem to be a little bit not so convinced. And Pip, who knew Salil, he was the best friend of her best friend's older sister, has decided to make it her mission to look into this murder. And that was a whole lot of backstory, but it's all like in the first couple pages. And I just thought this was such a cleverly done book in the telling of it, stylistically, in that it is her project for school. So we see her notes, we see text messages, we see her looking into the case. So there's transcripts, newspaper clippings. She's talking to reporters at the time, police at the time, pulling together information from the investigation from 5 years ago, and then looking into some leads on her own. So I thought it was really well done in that way, engaging just again in the physical telling of it. And then I just thought it was a really smart story. I think Pip is a spot-on main character. She's smart, she's witty, she's tenacious, she's determined, she gets herself into trouble, but she's not, you know, the idiot who is, you know, running up the stairs when she should be running out the front door, horror movie style. And I just thought it was just a really great cast of characters. Her family is terrific, her friends, there's a lot of layers to this. There's a lot of, I don't want to say like complicated backstory, but things are really woven in a very smart way. And one of the things I loved about this, but I'm pretty sure I talked about in the other video that I did, or maybe it was my Goodreads review, is that, you know, it's a mystery. So there are little droplings of clues, and there's some red herrings, and there's some little, you know, threads that, you know, you kind of want to tug on and think there might be something there. And there were a couple moments where I was like, ooh, I'm so smart. Like, this is definitely like a subtle hint that's going to play out. And then like a page later, Pip would run with that subtle thread. So I never was able to get a step ahead of her, which I was totally fine with. And I was able to, I should say, I had a suspicion about something that wound up being sort of not totally right, but a little bit, but not really. And I love being outsmarted by a book. And I just thought it was great. Great, great, great. Love Holly Jackson's writing style. And I found out, because this did come out in the UK last year, that the sequel to this is actually out in the UK, and I bought it, and I can't wait to read it. The only thing I will tell you, this is not a spoiler in any way, because there's a sequel, and Pip is in it, is she has a podcast in that, which is another one of my most favorite things in the entire world. So this is a completely solved mystery. So the original mystery in this does get resolved in the end, but there are some little sprinklings of like questions, and there's, like I said, a whole fleshed out cast of characters in this. So it left the door open for more, even though Holly Jackson said when she wrote it, she wasn't planning for it to be a series. So I love that it wasn't deliberately plotted to have open-ended questions, but at the same time, you can see where the story could continue on for a while to come. And the obsession with this book only grew when I had put the audiobook on hold before I decided to buy the book, and the audiobook came through my library because I forgot to like cancel the hold like a week and a half after I read this, and then I listened to it because I'm obsessed like that, and the audiobook was tremendous. So if you have a chance to read it or to listen to it, you can't go wrong either way. But the audiobook does have multiple actors on it, and it was reminiscent of Sadie in the way that, like, when they're on phone calls, things are different, and there's crackling and there's noise in the background, and it was a very authentic feel and sound to it, if you will. So I thought it was really well done on the audio side as well. So you literally can't go wrong. Tremendous story. It had me totally hooked. So I will keep you guys posted on the sequel, which I plan to read probably relatively soon. The next book I wanted to talk about is also from the haul video that I did, and it is You Were Made for This by Michelle Sachs. And this is a book that I found on Abby by Crime by the Books blog, and I was looking for something new to read and for some new inspiration and kind of some books that maybe weren't on my radar, because she led me down some other good paths with some other books. And this was definitely sort of the dark and twisted friendship, relationship, messed up people doing messed up things, kind of a theme type of a book. And I had no awareness of this book, this author, any of it. So this was sort of a deliciously fun find. And this book focuses on a married couple named Mary and Sam. And it's M-E-R-R-Y. I'm not saying Mary with a weird accent, so before anybody thinks I am. So Mary and Sam and their young son Connor, I want to say he's not even like 1 year old, live in this like picturesque little town in this countryside house in Sweden, which Sam has inherited from his family, and he's not allowed to sell it. So when he had inherited the house, they decided to pick up from New York City and move there and just sort of live this wonderful, fabulous fantasy life, so to speak. And they are, you know, Mary says it like on the first page, like they are the picture perfect family that everybody is going to hate. We're like the cast of an insurance commercial, shiny, happy us. And obviously you know that that's not what they're going to be, because when people are shiny, happy us, nobody says it. But Mary's childhood friend Frank comes to visit, and she is working in London, and she hasn't seen Mary in a little while, so she wants to come and stay with them for a bit, and she does. And that's just sort of when all sorts of fun things start to happen. So this is a definitely dark book, like I said, with messed up people doing messed up things. And it is one of these books where you don't know who to trust, who's telling the truth. Everyone's got secrets. Everybody's up to something. We get the backstory of their relationships woven in very naturally. It's just one of these books where I like compulsively was reading it. I didn't know where it was going to go. It definitely gets dark. This is not going to be a book for everybody in the darkness factor. And then also the writing style, she doesn't use quotations or anything for the dialogue. So it definitely takes a little bit to get into the groove of physically reading it, because just like the words on the page can be hard to focus on when people are having a conversation, especially when it's all three of them together, or Mary and Sam's neighbors come over. So when you get like a bunch of people talking, it can be a bit confusing. But once I sort of found the groove, I was completely fine with it. But I found it, like I said, a pretty compulsive read. There's like dark things that happen in this book, but the thing that bugged me the most, so like they live in this like countryside and their neighbors have a farm. So there is one scene where like the horse or the cow or whatever is giving birth, and it was so graphic that I basically wanted to like drop the book and gag. I just could have done without it. And then there's also a hunting scene, which I could have done without some of the graphic nature there. So the terrible things that humans did to each other, sign me up. Anything involving the animals, I could have like blown right through those parts. It was too much for me. But if you're looking for a new author, someone to check out, if you love some darkness, this is definitely worth a read. So I'm excited to see other things that Michelle Sachs does. I believe this was her debut, but this came out I think in 2018. So she does have some more books. So I will definitely give her another go. But this is a great recommendation from Abby. So again, she has not led me astray yet. The next book is an audio book that I listened to, obviously, and it is Have You Seen Me by Kate White. And I talked about this book in my anticipated releases video. So if you haven't checked that out, go for it. And this is an amnesia story, which is one of my most favorite tropes. And if you haven't seen an entire video that I made about amnesia books, you can check that out also. But I had super high hopes for this. I enjoy Kate White. She writes, I would say like her Bailey Wagon series is a bit of like lighter mysteries. And then she started to do some psychological thrillers that were standalones. So this is one of her standalone books. I find them to be like easily consumable. It is not like this level of darkness, but it's usually like a good light mystery. This book takes place in New York City, and it is about a woman named Allie. And in this book, the book opens, it's like a rainy morning. She's having a horrible morning. She shows up at work. It's like 8 o'clock in the morning. She doesn't understand. She's like the first person there. She can't find her card key. She can't get in, like card key to get into the space. And somebody in the office lets her in, and then she can't find her office key. So she's like sitting in the conference room waiting for her assistant to show up. And then this guy, Damien, who is her ex-boyfriend who works there, comes into the conference room and he's like, "Hey, Allie, what are you doing here?" And she was like, "Oh, I can't find my keys. I'm just waiting for my assistant so I can get into my office." And he's like, "You have not worked here in 5 years. What are you doing here?" And that's like the opening couple of pages. And I was hooked. She has no idea what she's doing there. And it becomes this mission for her to pull together what's happened basically in the last week of her life. So I was all in. This is my kind of book. I am hooked. This is everything I want in a book. But unfortunately, it's been done better before, and it just didn't work for me in a lot of ways. So I would say this is kind of, if you are new to thrillers, this is sort of like an even 3. This is like very middle of the road. It's a lot of, I would say, tropes and things I've seen before. So there was nothing really new to this for me, which was a bit of a disappointment. And I didn't feel like a lot of the characters were really fully fleshed out. I liked Allie, but at some points I found myself being frustrated with her. So I appreciated like she was on a mission to figure stuff out. She knew at times that she was sort of going against what her husband wanted her to do, or maybe sort of advice of other people. She needed to pull the pieces together. She needed to know what was happening to her, and she was hell-bent to find out what it was. So I enjoyed that part of it. And there were elements to her story and how she put the pieces together that I thought were really good. That said, there were parts that I found frustrating. Every character in her life was sort of portrayed as possibly sinister. And in some ways it was almost like a twirling of the mustache kind of a way. And like it was super obvious between her husband and her family and her best friend and her ex-boyfriend and people that she worked with. It was like everyone was like so obviously keeping a secret, or like so obviously trying to deceive her. It just felt like overkill, or just like too much, like too over the top. Like there was no subtlety to it. It just made it seem like, why are any of these people in your life even before your bad thing happened to you? Because it doesn't seem like anybody has your back. And then also she went through this obviously traumatic thing that she has blacked out and has no memory of a whole bunch of days in her life, and nobody can really help her out and figure out where she is. But when she's telling people, and again, I did the audiobook, so maybe part of this is because of the narrator, and maybe it would have read differently had I read it myself. But people were literally just like, Wow, Allie, that's tough. Wow, Allie, that must have been hard. Like, I would have been like, holy crap, you lost your memory? Like, where have you been? You don't have your keys, you don't have your phone, you don't have anything. Are you hurt? Are you okay? Like, it just seemed like people were like, wow, that stinks. So I wasn't really feeling that people kind of got what she was going through. And then we have a whole mystery in the past with her, which normally I like me a past mystery and a present mystery and how they all intertwine. The whole thing just didn't gel right for me. And then there was like one moment, and this is one of my least favorite things, and this isn't a spoiler, but this is like your classic horror movie trope. There was an opportunity to reveal the person who was after her, kind of literally, because the person had a mask on, and they just didn't pull the mask off. They just walked away. So who does that? Like, who does that? She wasn't alone. I mean, that was annoying. And then the finale, all of it, the climax, whatever. I just kind of like, I didn't buy like the entire thing. Like, it all just felt a little too contrived. Like, it just didn't. Like, I think there was so much great potential. She winds up hiring a private eye who I loved. Like, I thought we could have done more there. It wasn't the story I wanted it to be. And again, I've read a lot of amnesia stories because it's one of my favorite things to read. And I've read better, and I think it could have been better. So there were elements to this that I did enjoy, but ultimately it didn't have a satisfying ending for me. And I just wanted more from it. And I've read better Kate White in my time, so maybe that's it too. So I'm glad I listened to it. I just wanted more. I just wanted some more. And then the last book I want to talk about, because we are so ending on a high note, is Death in the Family by Tessa Wiegert. And this is another book that I found out about from Crime by the Book, and I loved it. This is Agatha Christie-esque isolated mystery. It is everything I want in a book, and I am so thrilled about this book and this writer and the story. So this is about a police detective, Shayna Merchant. And the book opens, she is in a shrink's office in New York City talking about a case that she had been working on. And chapter 2, we fast forward 13 months or 16 months, something like that. And she is living in upstate New York with her fiance, and she is on sort of the small town police squad, and her partner get called to one of the nearby islands, because there's a whole bunch of islands in the Finger Lakes, I think is where they are. And it is a missing persons case. So it is a super wealthy family from Manhattan, and this is like their island that they come to. And one of the family members is missing when they wake up the next morning. So Shayna and her partner go out there on the boat. Shores are a little rocky. Storm is in the forecast. You know where this is going. So they get out to the island, and when they get there, it's like, oh, by the way, here's his bed, and it's covered in blood, and we have no idea where he is. So our regular little missing persons case suddenly looks a lot more sinister. And the 8 suspects, I want to say, there's 8 people who are there. Doesn't matter. It's like 8 or 9 people who are there. It's like it's his grandmother and his brother and sister and in-laws and his niece and his fiance, and it is just, everybody's a suspect. Everybody's got secrets. There's so much going on with this family, and the nor'easter hits and help is not on the way, and Shayna and her partner are stuck on the island with these people trying to figure out where he is, what happened, and like who done it in this group of people. And I thought this was so well written. I thought it was like great atmosphere. Like I could completely picture all of it. I could picture the house. I could picture the family. Totally got the vibes of it. And I just thought it was so well done. There was nothing preposterous. So here's a case of like, everybody's a suspect. Everybody's sinister. Everybody's got secrets. Who can you trust? Who's telling you the truth? Who's lying? All of those same things. But it was just done in such a smart, brilliant way that it very much made me feel like anybody could have been up to no good. And if any of these people had been the culprit, I basically would have bought it. This is how you do a mystery, in my opinion. This is writing goals for me. This is up there with Lucy Foley, with my new favorite isolated mystery writer. This is a debut, so I don't know how long it's going to be before we get another book, but it's a Shayna Merchant novel, so obviously first in the series. Again, this is a book that completely wraps itself up in this book. There's no loose strings with the original mystery, but her being a detective, obviously, so many possibilities for the future of Shayna. So loved it. So that's going to do it for my first look at what I've read in May, and I have definitely slowed down a little bit this month than I had last month. I was listening to a ton of audiobooks when I was going out for walks in April, and I'm still doing a little bit of audiobook, but I've also switched to listening to a lot of podcasts also. How many times can I say also? So less books this month, but I'm not at all unhappy about it. I think I've read a lot of quality books. I'm definitely in a reading groove and loving it. So stay tuned for part 2, because that will be here at some stage of the game. And at this point, let me know what you guys are reading. If you've read any of these, kind of what your favorites are so far, and we will chat down below and do all that good stuff. So thank you guys for watching. Thanks for being here today. If you are new to the channel and you haven't already subscribed, it would be wonderful if you did that, because I want you to come back and see when the next videos are coming. And also it really helps me. And if you like these kinds of videos, definitely give it a thumbs up. And I will see you guys in the next video. Take care, everyone. And thanks again for watching. Bye, guys.